Right now. Good afternoon, everybody. If everybody can take a seat, we're going to go ahead and get started in a moment here. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Emil Thompson, and I am the chairman of the DC Public Service Commission. I'm joined today by my fellow commissioner, Commissioner Richard Beverly, and I'm extremely happy to be hosting the commission's first annual Supplier Diversity Hearing. Before we begin, I want to thank our attendees, both here in person and virtual, for attending. This is a matter of great importance, and your participation highlights the importance of this topic. Now, supplier diversity is something that is not new to the Commission. In fact, in 1991, we signed our very first Memorandum of Understanding with the district's regulated utilities, Pepco, Washington Gas, and Verizon, focusing on supplier diversity. Since that time, the original MOU has undergone several iterations to meet the changing landscape. In March of 2021, former Chairman Willie Phillips brought the utilities together again to develop this new partnership. The goal of this partnership was to ensure that we were intentional about diversity, inclusivity, especially in creating jobs and opportunities. His leadership was instrumental in bringing us to this hearing. The Commission revisited the utilities' commitment to supplier diversity through newly executed MOUs with Pepco, Washington Gas Light, and Verizon. These new MOUs allow us to explore opportunities, expose inequities, and encourage the utilities to award at least 25% of their total procurement spend to minority, women, service-disabled veterans, and LGBT communities, LGBT-owned businesses, as well as not-for-profit communities. The goal of the MOUs is to increase awareness of and opportunities for diverse businesses through education and accountability, and documents the commitment to the continuing expansion of opportunities for diverse businesses to participate in the procurement of goods and services. It is no myth that greater diversity and inclusion fuels a wider range of ideas, expertise, and life experiences. Greater diversity helps evolve our collective knowledge and overall mindset. Diverse suppliers deliver broad perspectives and experiences, and they help promote innovation. I would like to thank our utility providers for being here today. They serve a pivotal role in our society. Not only do they provide essential services to the district, but they also provide meaningful and substantive contracts and job opportunities to our community. Begin this hearing by listening to our utility companies and allowing them to discuss what they have been doing to encourage inclusivity and diversity in their procurement process. It is important to acknowledge that each utility voluntarily entered these MOUs. That voluntariness confirms that we are all in this together. Today, they will give us some information about their reporting metrics and describe efforts that they have made to develop and support diverse businesses. We also understand what they are doing is not an easy task. As we tackle climate change and look for new ways to build a more affordable, sustainable, resilient, and safe environment, we know that the doors of competition will open and get larger for many. The Commission is committed to ensuring that all have equitable opportunities and access to walk through these doors. We have invited experts and industry leaders to discuss how to help us navigate our ever-changing marketplace. They will help us not only look at the numbers, but also look behind the veil, help us to understand some needs and the experiences of minority-owned businesses. Through this conversation, we can expect advice and guidance about how our growing and evolving industries can develop and continue to embrace, encourage, and grow participation in supplier diversity. The Commission's goal is to be a leader in recognizing the need for growth, building the proper structures and capacity for joint ventures and partnerships, and creating the necessary pipelines for all. The Commission is committed to ensuring that using diverse businesses is a core element of both our internal and external procurement policy. We understand that we cannot afford to miss the mark. Thank you again for joining us in this important discussion around supplier diversity. I will now turn to Commissioner Beverly to provide some additional comments before we introduce our utility representatives. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Thompson. Good afternoon again to everybody here. Thank you for being here today. Again, I'm Richard Beverly, and I echo the chairperson's remarks. If we're seriously to address the racial and gender inequities in our society, then our utility companies must join the fight against discrimination and help create economic opportunity for everyone. We know, as Chairman Thompson pointed out, there will be challenges in meeting diversity goals, but even though it won't always be easy, it will always be the right thing to do. I'd like to thank Chairman Phillips, former Chairman Phillips, for starting this initiative, and again to thank Chairman Thompson for continuing it, and special thanks to staff for helping put this event together. And with that, I turn it back over to Chairman Thompson to introduce our panelists.
Thank you, Commissioner Beverly. Our hearing today will begin with a legislative style hearing with our utilities. Each utility was invited to participate in the hearing, and representatives from all three utilities are here. We will first begin with Pepco, and we will have Ms. Vernice Lewis, who is a Supplier Diversity Manager at Pepco. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairman Thompson and Commissioner Beverly. Thank you for the opportunity to update you on the progress of Pepco's diverse business empowerment initiatives. In 2021, Pepco exceeded its goals for the inclusion of diverse suppliers and for expanding relationships with them. Through a careful planning and a concerted effort to implement diverse business empowerment process, Pepco purchased $321 million, or 42%, of goods and services from diversity certified suppliers. That represents a $72 million, or 28% increase compared to 2020. Our company's success or achievements stems from combining Pepco's successful supplier diversity program with Exelon's mature and strategically focused diverse business empowerment process. Specifically as it relates to DC, Pepco spent approximately $125 million with diversity certified suppliers headquartered in DC. As the world continued to feel the impact of the pandemic, Pepco doubled down on our commitment to diverse supplier inclusion in our supply chain. Looking back on the year, program improvements around refined internal communications contributed to the increase in diverse spending. During 2021, our supply leadership team continued to reinforce our sourcing professionals' commitment to collaborate with our Diverse Business Empowerment Office to identify sourcing opportunities and invite potential diverse suppliers to sourcing events. Our category managers assisted in the management of strategic sourcing initiatives, and our company's strong partnership encouraged supply employees to participate in Pepco's Diverse Business Empowerment networking events and to provide diversity throughout the entire organization. We continue to rely on the widespread involvement and support of our employees to achieve our supplier diversity targets. Pepco's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Council and the Supplier Diversity Subcommittee implemented a strategy aimed at creating greater awareness of Exelon's diverse business empowerment process to increase spend over the year. Our team continued to increase the internal understanding and commitment for supplier diversity by building awareness of Pepco's goals and achievements for the Supplier Diversity Program. An ancillary purpose of the Supplier Diversity Subcommittee is to educate and raise awareness among council members themselves so they may be champions within the organization around supplier diversity. At Pepco, we promote supplier diversity through a broad network of supplier diversity business advocates, which is a group of director level and higher managers who are assigned by their respective vice presidents to expand supplier diversity within their lines of business. We had regular meetings with those employees, and those employees helped determine diversity goals, develop strategies, and share best practices, as well as managing and monitoring our progress toward continuous improvement of program results. Another key element to our growth in supplier diversity is directly correlated to our commitment to diverse supplier development programs. In 2021, we continued to integrate EDBE processes into our day-to-day operation, thus allowing our sourcing team to develop diverse suppliers as well as facilitate opportunities to increase opportunities for them. We monitored the growth and engaged with suppliers who participated in our inaugural Diverse Supplier Development Academy by ensuring inclusion on any opportunities within the supply chain. We also assigned an executive sponsor within the company for additional mentoring and coaching opportunities for those suppliers. We also participated in the launch of the Exelon Foundations Program, which was a pilot capacity building program that was designed to grow minority businesses in Exelon's footprint, including suppliers in Pepco's service territory. The program was funded through grants that Exelon awarded to 3 of our local affiliates of the National Minority Supplier Development Council, including the Capital Region Minority Supplier Development Council. We have a longstanding commitment to diversity and inclusion, and we aspire to be a utility industry leader in this area. We also recognize the importance of supplier diversity in all aspects of our business and our procurement practices. We established a diverse business empowerment process that's dedicated to developing relationships with DC-based, minority-owned, women-owned, veteran-owned, and LGBT businesses, and ensuring that Pepco has access to a talented, diverse supplier base that reflects our customer base. For Pepco, helping the DC diversity certified suppliers grow and become more competitive is smart business, provides for stronger businesses, and it means a stronger economy for our communities. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
But I could ask, I don't know if the panelists have been asked to do it or not, and it's not just a question for you, but for everyone. Please submit a copy of your statements. I'd like to read them.
Okay.
So I don't know whether you plan to do that, but I would like to read what you just said. Thank you. Thank you. And that goes for everyone. Thank you. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to make you stand there.
Next, we will have Douglas Smith, who is a Vice President of State and Government Affairs at Verizon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and Commissioner. On behalf of Verizon, my name is Doug Smith, Vice President, State Government Affairs, and I'm pleased to join you today as part of a consortium of companies that have pledged their commitment to supplier diversity in the District of Columbia. Verizon is proud to have been part of this program since the very beginning. I'm pleased to share our 2021 results, and they were a strong performance that continues our series of strong results for many years in the district. I'd also like to share some of our plans for 2022. In 2021, Verizon invested over $17 million with diverse suppliers in the district. Of interest, this spend was accomplished at a time when all businesses, large and small, were faced with the continuation of the ongoing challenge of the COVID-19 pandemic. While the regulated side of our business continues to witness a rapid disconnection of copper landline, the wireless side of the business is experiencing strong growth in capital investment. COVID-19 impacts on Verizon created a new normal in business policies and procedures. While the pandemic resulted in decreases in overall spend for Verizon in areas outside the district, Verizon actually increased our overall spend within the district last year as we continue to replace our copper network with fiber. The additional overall spend flowed through to our diverse vendors, and we were able to increase our overall diverse spend and certified diverse spend last year. Accordingly, Verizon's overall supplier diversity result last year came in at 47%, and our certified result came in at 37%, which continues the strong performance of Verizon's results in DC over the years. The bright spot in the 2021 results was the 31% increase in African-American vendor spend over 2020 levels. Overall, it's important to appreciate that 48% of our overall spend with our top 25 suppliers is diverse. Our early results in 2022 are encouraging. Verizon's year-to-date 2022 percentages for diverse vendor spend appears to maintain the high level of results that we experienced in 2021. As we continue to focus our energies on diverse vendor engagement, the internal Verizon team that monitors and implements minority vendor programs initiated new partnerships, activities, and programs that serve the minority business community. Highlights include the Verizon Small Business Digital Ready initiative as part of our commitment to helping businesses succeed in the digital economy by providing resources to help 1 million small businesses thrive by 2030. Small business owners can benefit from learning modules, expert coaching, and peer networking all available on this online portal. Participants who register and complete 2 courses or mentoring events will be eligible to apply for grant funding exclusive to users of the Small Business Digital Ready program. We will continually assess content to ensure we serve the needs of small and diverse businesses as we all together strive for a COVID recovery. Additionally, we co-hosted a Premier Supplier Academy session with our real estate prime suppliers in 2021 to support the growth and opportunity of diverse suppliers in their supply chain. Verizon has also pledged support in the Women's Business Enterprise National Council's Women of Color Incubator Program, a 6-week program designed for Black female student entrepreneurs at historically Black colleges and universities. The program provides the next generation of Black women entrepreneurs with resources and support to grow their early stage ventures. Lastly, Verizon is a proud charter member of the $1 Billion Roundtable, a coalition of 28 companies that spend more than $1 billion each year with diverse businesses. Looking to the future, Verizon will continue to participate in outreach activities, hosting webinars, programs, panel discussions to help drive diverse supplier utilization. Thank you for this opportunity to report on our progress. I hope you get a sense of the focus and energy that Verizon continues to bring to diverse supplier opportunities in the district, and I look forward to coming back next year to share the results of our ongoing efforts. Thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
Last but certainly not least, we will have Ms. Kelly Heron from Washington Gas, who is a Senior Manager of Supplier Diversity.
I don't know if you can see me behind this podium. If it's okay with you, Chairman Thompson and Commissioner Beverly, we'd like to have a few comments from Tracy Townsend, our VP of Construction, before I give my presentation. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
That's fine.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairman Thompson and Commissioner Beverly and staff. My name is Tracy Townsend. I'm the Vice President of Construction at Washington Gas, and I am pleased to be here. And here with me today is Kelly, who you just was introduced to, as well as Nazi Hamadani, the Director of Utilities Supply Chain. Kelly's going to be leading Washington Gas's report out today, and Nazi will be here for any specific questions thereafter. Washington Gas is dedicated to successfully meeting our commitments to the District of Columbia Public Service Commission of obtaining our aspirational goal of 35% spend with certified diverse suppliers by 2028, increasing our supplier base of DC diverse certified businesses. The company's supply chain team supports our mission of delivering safe, reliable, and affordable services to our customers by managing the costs of services and materials, engaging in ethical supply chain practices, sourcing environmentally sustainable products, maintaining a culture of inclusivity for diverse suppliers. As part of our longstanding commitment, we have implemented an enterprise supplier diversity program across all AltaGas entities. We have expanded our supplier diversity team, allocated resources, enhanced policies, and applied new procedures in the procurement process to reach those targets. While we initially concluded that our efforts have been successful, we realized there are still areas of improvement. Now, Kelly will highlight those successes.
Thank you for allowing us to have Tracy come up. We thought it was important to share the commitment from our leadership at Washington Gas and their involvement in our supplier diversity program. We are dedicated to increasing our supplier base of diversity certified businesses and reaching our aspirational goal and commitment of 35% by 2028. And 2021 was an outstanding year for Washington Gas, our best year ever on record. We exceeded 28% of our procured non-gas spend with diverse suppliers, the highest on record. That was a year-over-year increase from 2020 of $17 million. We had 7% of our spend with DC-based suppliers. That was an increase of 100% from 2020. Achievements in the Washington Gas Supplier Diversity Program are a direct reflection of the Washington Gas senior executives, as you heard from Tracy, the supply chain team, and the employees' commitment to creating a supplier base reflective of the communities that we serve. It is literally an all-hands-on-deck approach. We are steadfast in our pledge to the inclusion of local and diverse suppliers. And as such, we continue to evaluate processes, develop strategies, implement program enhancements, and monitor our progress towards continuous improvement. To further demonstrate our commitment to supplier diversity, we've implemented a number of program enhancements. On the process side and people side, we've increased our resources to the supplier diversity team, having 3 full-time staff members, a senior manager, a manager, and we are currently hiring a specialist in the supplier diversity group. With intentionality, we created a policy and enhanced procedures to emphasize the importance of including diverse businesses in all of our sourcing events. We met with internal business partners throughout the organization to communicate the new procurement policy and to educate them on the inclusivity of the supplier sourcing events. We provide regular reports to our executives on the awareness of the spend in their business unit, and each of them have been assigned targets for their business unit in terms of diverse spend. Excuse me. We've continued our external outreach and our partnerships. We are currently a corporate member of the Capital Region Minority Supplier Development Council. 2 of our team members are on the board of directors. We served and participated as a sponsor of the CRMSDC's Virtual Super Business Matchmaker. This event served as an optimal opportunity for us to further engage with minority businesses and prospective vendors to share opportunities that we have coming up. We held briefing sessions with the Greater Washington Hispanic Chamber of Commerce as part of our strategic plan. And we've also attended and participated in the annual Breakfast and Minority Vendor Affair with the Maryland Washington Minorities Companies Association. We are a member of the Maryland Utility Forum. And as members, we have benchmarked with the other utilities in that forum as well. And to further extend our outreach, this year, I assumed the role of co-chair of the Maryland Utility Forum to further our mission of supplier diversity and engagement. Metrics is a key part of how we monitor our program and how we move forward. We have automated our diverse spending process to have further transparency in our numbers, to be able to drill down into the details of the categories and the high impact areas and where we need to increase our bench strength. We've incorporated a robust data tracking of Tier 1 and Tier 2. We track this with the same rigor that we track our safety performance. It's just that important to us. We've expanded the ability to analyze our historical data to understand our trends, where we've been, and also identify where we're going with forecasting tools. And in our supplier engagement, we have expanded our diversity certified suppliers to align with the DC and Maryland PSC MOUs, paying close attention to the LGBTQ and the veteran-owned businesses and the inclusivity of those categories in our supplier diversity program, while still continuing to focus on local and diverse Black and brown businesses. Our supplier development, we have this year, in 2023, we'll be launching a formal supplier development program. We've had our non-diverse primes, we've charged them with meeting our commitment to supplier diversity by having robust Tier 2 programs. And we've also, as part of that, included Tier 2 subcontracting commitments as part of our contracts with our suppliers and as part of our scoring for our RFP process. As we know, there have been challenges with COVID, and part of our inclusive recovery is we made sure to leverage the virtual platforms to engage businesses for Washington Gas opportunities and to identify new suppliers in the process. Thank you for your time and your attention.
Thank you. Well, I want to first begin by commending each of the utilities for hitting their goals. I think that's certainly a great sign, but it's also a sign that perhaps we need to increase the goals because you hit them so easily. But one of the things that each of you talked about was the impact of COVID-19 and the ensuing pandemic. So my first question is, how has that, how did the pandemic really change, or did it change the profile of diversity suppliers in the last 3 years in terms of whether it's women versus minority owned versus veterans versus LGBTQ?
I'll take a stab at that if you like, Mr. Chairman. At Verizon, we were very fortunate. First of all, when it comes to the profile of the diverse suppliers, our profile really didn't change very much over the last 3 years. We had a very robust and wide-ranging set of skill sets within our database to begin with, a variety of products and services, and we're always looking for more diverse suppliers to improve that profile. So the profile surprisingly didn't change very much for us in COVID pandemic experience. And during that peak of the COVID pandemic, our business continued very, very well. As you know, everybody had to work from home, go to school from home, and they needed broadband. That's us. So we were very busy. So our business was very stable, very successful, and we were able to flow that through into our diverse vendor program.
For Exelon, our vendor profile didn't change, but we were very conscious and very intentional because intentionality is key to achievements in supplier diversity. So we were very intentional to double down on our commitment to the inclusivity of diversity certified suppliers. And one of the initiatives that came out of, or that was sparked around COVID in tandem with that, was our development of the Foundations program with the Capital Region Minority Supplier Development Council. So that's a part of our efforts to develop local diverse firms. And that program is designed specifically to introduce diverse suppliers to the utility industry. So through that program, it's a capacity building program where we introduce the suppliers. We talk to them about forecasting. We talk to them about trends in the utility industry to help them get prepared, not only to do business with Pepco, with other utilities as well.
Yeah, so for Washington Gas, our supplier profiles did not change, but what we realized is that we had to pivot in terms of engaging new suppliers and in terms of how we engage with them and how we introduce them to the business unit by having a virtual presence that was larger than what we had had before. We did have challenges with in bringing on new suppliers that the certification process was a little longer because of COVID. And so in some ways that provided somewhat of a challenge for us, but because we knew we were in a COVID situation, we continued to push or kick the can down the road and engage those suppliers until that situation was resolved. So our profiles didn't necessarily change. We just pivoted our behavior to accommodate.
When each of the utilities are looking for diverse suppliers, is there a specific skill set that you find to be a little bit harder to find diverse suppliers for?
At Verizon, and I don't need to be the first one to speak each time, but at Verizon, we are constantly moving forward trying to find contractors and subcontractors for our outside plant construction. We have a very, very ambitious 5G rollout as well as a fiber deployment that requires a ton of manpower, not just inventory and back office systems, but we need trucks and people. And that can be a challenge even outside of COVID time period to find qualified contractors, to find diverse contractors and subcontractors is also a challenge. So that's probably the biggest stretch for us, is that as we ramp up our build, finding the people, retaining the people.
Yeah. So for us, the identifying local suppliers and diverse suppliers that have the capacity and the resources to support our transmission and distribution gas construction side. And so what we've realized is that we have had to explore ways to identify smaller projects to allow them to build the capacity and the resources so that as we're developing them, then they become eligible and they're ready for the larger projects. And so with Tracy Townsend's team and the supply team, those are things that we're exploring.
And for us, it would be similar to Washington Gas. As far as the identification of diverse suppliers, we work very closely with the Capital Region Minority Supplier Development Council, as well as our other advocacy groups to identify diverse firms. We also are very intentional about partnering and participating in various networking events to identify diverse suppliers that may be able to work with us. And then through the Empowerment Academies, which is our supplier development program, once we identify those suppliers, we look to them to include them in the program, whether it be foundations or the Empowerment Academies, to help them get a better understanding of what it takes to do business with us, and to help build their capacity so that they can grow as well.
I may add, another area of challenge for us is the IT and digital. Seems like there's a shortage of those, and we constantly look for those areas of opportunities.
And kind of picking up on that same topic, I know each of you have talked about different initiatives that your utility has spearhead to try and grow that pipeline. Are there any other additional initiatives that people who are either here or joining us virtually, they should hear about in terms of ways to get involved with you or get connected to the utilities? And I would just also ask for you guys to speak up a little bit just to make sure your voice is picked up.
So from a standpoint around the initiatives, what we talked about with the supplier development is very key for us, but also for suppliers to begin to get more engaged with the advocacy organizations, because they really help us through the various programs that they have and the networking opportunities. Now, I understand, because it's been a challenge having to be virtual for the last couple of years, but we have been able to make great connections with diverse firms through these various organizations and our intentionality around the outreach efforts. So we have found some success in that.
There are obviously so many different tools available, all of them online. There's portals, there's mentorships, there's partnerships, there's online networking events, and we participate in all these. But one thing that requires is that the diverse suppliers, particularly the small and medium-sized suppliers, have the technology and the ability and the time to get into those through the digital networks, because they're so busy trying to make their day-to-day payroll and be successful and get out there. They need to take the time to become technologically savvy and use the resources that we're all providing through all the different avenues.
Yeah, and I would also add that, we often are at the events so that we can engage with suppliers in the community to be able to meet them, answer questions that they have. So it's really critical that they attend the CRM-SDC events, the WeBake events, the Chamber of Commerce events, because we're all there, we're all looking for suppliers. I'll also add that Washington Gas is holding a Supplier Diversity Day at the end of September. We're finalizing the details now, but that will be on our website, and we'll send out communications to our suppliers and all of the agencies and the community partners that we have to invite suppliers so that they can understand what we have coming up and available.
That's a really good point, that not just having the technology savvy and the technology to get into the resources, but to take the time. And I know the small, medium players don't have the time, but to invest that time to go to the events that we all sponsor and participate in, that networking is huge.
I would also add that suppliers have to be persistent, persistent. in getting in front of us, be persistent in reaching out to us to understand the various opportunities that are coming. Just be consistent in reaching out to us as well, so that we can better understand the services that they offer.
Is there anything that you think the utilities can do better in terms of engaging the diverse suppliers?
There's always ways we can, we learn from each other, actually. In fact, I'm always keenly aware of these opportunities to see and hear about programs that we're not involved in that we can piggyback on or partner with. So yeah, we can always improve, and we're always looking for those opportunities.
And participating in these type of hearings is also helpful as well, because as Doug said, we're able to connect with one another and to learn from one another about there could be something that Washington Gas is doing that Pepco can learn from. There's something that Pepco's doing that Verizon can learn from. But it's the collaboration of the utilities. I think that makes it for a stronger environment for the diverse firms in our region.
Given the small pool of suppliers that appear to be available, are you finding yourselves using the same suppliers over and over? And the flip side of that is there a retention problem with certain suppliers? Just like hiring an employee, I can hire somebody that I thought would work out, kind of didn't. So I was just curious to see how that's worked out for you.
Once we find good performers, we like to retain good performers, and we will continue to use those performers. If they're marginal, then we will coach, educate, try to work with them to improve their performance. But we're always looking to add to our stable of qualified, certified vendors that are out there.
I would echo the sentiments. We have not had a challenge in the retention of suppliers. When suppliers are working with us, if there are challenges that they're having, we make every effort to work with them, to coach them, and to help guide them along, because we do understand that with some of the smaller suppliers in particular may need more assistance, and we're always willing to provide that.
And I would echo that as well. We do a lot of coaching with suppliers to help them understand how to perform on our system, what our requirements are from a safety standpoint, from how they represent us in the community. And we do that from the supply chain side as well as the business side. So we stay engaged. As far as retaining, I think we've been successful in retaining suppliers. I would say probably the challenge for us again is being able to identify those that can support us in certain areas.
Can I make mention of something else? What we found is that one of the keys to success in supplier diversity is when we have leadership engagement and leadership support. And we have that at Pepco from the top down. We have that at Exelon from the top down, because when you have that strong leadership or robust leadership engagement, that makes our jobs, which can be challenging, I won't even say it's easier. It just provides the support that we need. Because there are times that even with the suppliers who may be struggling, where we assign them an executive mentor to help them and coach them along through the process. So leadership engagement is crucial to the success of any supplier diversity program. Without that support from the top down and leadership, it's very difficult.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. The coaching to me, when you're dealing with suppliers that may not have had these opportunities before and they're just getting it, the coaching is essential to success. So I'm happy to hear that you're doing that, so that I don't hear in the future that suppliers are falling through the screen some kind of way because they just didn't have the resources to realize what they needed to do.
That support is important.
The feedback is crucial.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we do, in addition to what Bernice said about executive sponsorship at Washington Gas, supply diversity is part of everybody's value drivers. Is everybody's goal. It's not Kelly's goal or my goal. Every single person has a supply diversity goal. And in addition to attracting more diverse vendors, one thing we have realized is we need to have a robust category management and demand planning. the diverse vendors need to know what's coming down the pike. And the event that Kelly mentioned, the Diversity Day, provides those kind of outlook to the diverse vendors, so it would position them for the future opportunities. They need to know what's coming.
We talked a little bit about best practices, and one of the best practices that we borrowed from another utility was something called the Champions Program. And what we are doing is engaging the employee body as a whole. We are having regular Zoom calls, now face-to-face meetings. We have them every 2 weeks, and these are with folks identified throughout the employee body, not just in the district, but nationally and internationally. So my peer group, everybody in sourcing, all the folks involved in diverse vendors, and we educate, we explain all the opportunities, what we need, why we need it, and we have them as employees, not part of our diverse vendor team, but as employees, they become the point of contact within their business unit in procurement, and they shepherd and they promote the need for diverse supplier utilization, and that has ballooned our numbers. So everybody's engaged, everybody has skin in the game, and we also tied it to their performance objectives and their bonus payments. So it's amazing the results that we're getting. And it's the passion, it's the young people that are coming into the business, and maybe it's their mindset, but they are so engaged in this aspect of the business that I haven't seen in the last 15 years. Very passionate, very engaged, and it makes it that much easier for us to trumpet the need, the plans, the efforts, and it's working.
Thank you.
Well, Nazi, you kind of opened the can of worms when you said knowing about what opportunities are in the pipeline. And so I wanted to give each of the utilities a chance to just maybe talk about 1 or 2 procurements that are in the pipeline that people who may be either here or listening may be interested in it following up on.
Currently, we're releasing an RFP for permitting. So that's a very good opportunity. I think we have already identified 4 or 5 diverse vendors in that area. Summertime is a construction season for us. So we do our accelerated replacement programs, which it could impact from design to construction to paving to restoration. All of those areas would get elevated in summer. Also, transmission projects that we do. Again, design, construction, and those are the opportunities that we have right now.
So I don't have any specific sourcing opportunities to address, but I would encourage all suppliers to go to our website, exeloncorp.com, under suppliers, which gives an overview of these goods and services that we purchase annually, that we purchase to keep our business going. So I would encourage that. Can I also just make mention of, I know we're in a different question, but I wanted to just go back to Doug's point about supplier diversity being a passion of the employees. At Pepco, we also have what's called a business advocates team. So we have representatives from every department where they are assigned by the vice presidents or the executives to talk through and to help us put more strategy around supplier diversity, because while the supplier diversity process is owned by Pepco, is owned by Supply, it's more than just the Diverse Business Empowerment Office. It's something that's a passion throughout the organization and one that's championed all the way up to our executives. So.
To the question about opportunities within Verizon, as everybody's aware, there is the American Rescue Plan that was recently signed into law, as well as the American Jobs Plan, which is also known as the Infrastructure Investment Jobs Act, I think, pouring billions of dollars into infrastructure, and particularly billions into broadband. Verizon has to bid through the RFP process in those. We are actively engaged. We are hopeful to win those RFPs, and those will trigger tremendous increases in our build, which is already robust to begin with. And once again, opportunities for field technicians, contractors, subcontractors, designers, a wide array of different types of skill sets that would help us put that plant into place.
Thank you. So at this time, we don't have any further, we have no further questions. I think we may have time for one question from the audience, if there is a question. Yes, sir. Come.
Good afternoon. My name is Malik Edwards. I'm with the law firm Tiber Hudson. I'm a lawyer and DC regulatory consultant. My question here at this supplier diversity hearing, these are utilities. I wonder if there are opportunities for some of the soft trades like law, consulting. I know a bunch of engineers are here, and designers, but I'm sort of curious as to any of you could speak on opportunities within the utility industry for soft trades such as mine.
We are actively engaged in this, looking and searching for diverse law firms all the time.
I'm glad I came up here.
We need to talk after the event.
There's area of opportunity for that's for us as well, and we'll be happy to connect you to the appropriate folks.
Same for Washington Gas.
Exactly. We will be very interested.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you.
Okay, well, I think that will be a good segue. We're going to have a brief networking break before we resume, I believe, back at 4:15 with the next panel. Thank you. Hello. Okay, everybody. If everybody can take their seat, we'll go ahead and begin with the second panel. Okay, so welcome back, everybody. This portion of our event is focused on creating a clearer path to supplier diversity. Commission hopes to encourage a dialogue around best practices, existing barriers in procurement, and available resources as it relates to supplier diversity in the District of Columbia. The Commission has invited district industry leaders and experts to represent diverse suppliers. Our panelists will have 5 to 7 minutes to give an overview of their work. Following their presentations, panelists may respond to questions and dialogue with other panelists regarding supplier diversity. First, we will have Lori Dowling. She is the Executive Director of the National Utilities Diversity Council. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Chair Thompson, Commissioner Beverly. Thank you very much for letting us be part of this. I send greetings on behalf of the co-chairs of our organization, the Honorable Kimberly O'Gwen and Mr. Harry Sedaris. Hearings like this are so important, not only because they allow the commissions to get a sense of what's happening in the area of supplier diversity and in diversity overall, but because you put attention on supplier diversity, and that aids the internal work of the company as well. All of the people that spoke to you already today from these platinum level companies that are, 2 of them are $1 billion round table participants, all of them really are assisted by the attention that you focus, because when you ask a question, it gets answered. And that means that that resources and corporate attention is paid to this really important topic. So I thank you very much. And I apologize, I do have a couple of slides, mostly because, am I doing it right? Sid, I think I broke it. Oh, there we go. And Commissioner Beverly, these will be available to you, so you don't have to ask for them. And not only that, I'm not going to read all of them. But on a day like today, when we're thinking about supplier diversity, I really wanted to call out one of the lions in the history of supplier diversity in the utility industry, and that is Commissioner Emeritus Harold Williams of the Maryland Public Service Commission, who passed away on Friday. None of us would be doing what we do without the work that Commissioner Williams did, both in his professional life at Baltimore Gas and then in his public service, creating the Utility Marketplace Access Committee of the National Association of Regulatory Utility Commissioners, and making, supplier diversity a national watchword in our industry. And so I just wanted us to take a moment and recognize Commissioner Williams for his, tremendous leadership and courageous championship of diversity. One of the things that you asked of the first panel, what could such high-level performers in supplier diversity do better? And one of the things that I'm giving here is just some insight into the life cycle of supplier diversity. And so the answer is everybody can do something better. We all do some things better than others. And when you think about that life cycle, among the, Mr. Smith talked about tying results to compensation, and then that is a tremendously excellent and platinum level actions, or but nothing that you wouldn't expect from a $1 billion roundtable club member. But every one of these stops along the supplier diversity life cycle, whether it be making sure that diversity is in the room well before a procurement, well before the contract is written, and when the procurement is, initially being imagined, to what is the role of your primes in advancing diversity, and how are you managing your primes to make them more engaged, to what is the role of your senior executive team in advocating for diversity every day. There are many aspects of this that could be done better by all of us. And it's really important to remember that somewhere in the United States, somebody is doing one of the things that you do less well better than you. And the wonderful thing about the utility industry is that most of you are not really competing with each other. And so there's a lot of opportunity to share best practices and advance diversity. And also just to say that this supplier diversity ecosystem, it's not just the utility companies and their suppliers, it's the community, it's the regulators, it's the investment funds. All of there are myriad inputs into success in this area. And I think it's really important for us to just know that we all sort of have a cycle where we work together to advance supplier diversity in all ways. As you mentioned, Chair Thompson, DC was the second state to, the second regulatory commission, it should be a state, to create a supplier diversity MOU. The first one was my home state of California with the General Order 156 in 1988, almost immediately followed by y'all in 1991. Since your good starting work, 12 other states and territories have created supplier diversity or workforce diversity relationships of one sort or another. In some cases, it's a memorandum of understanding, as you have. In other cases, it's legislation. In some cases, it's executive order. One size really doesn't fit all for any state in the United States, as far as I can tell, which makes it hard to sort and hard to track, but it does make it easier for regulatory utility commissions to buy into it. I did want to just say that you were looking at the varying kinds of goals, and I wanted to give you a sense of some of the goals that exist. You know, in California, the CPUC's goal for procurement is 21.5%. It's met significantly higher than that by most of the companies in California. There's one company that is now in its fourth year of over 70% spend with diverse companies. I sort of follow her around and just learn from her when I can. You know, in Maryland, their initial goal was 16%, and now they're over 25%. They had to move the goalposts, and their aggregate in 2020 was 33.5%. I call out to you, New York, which does not have a goal through its Public Service Commission, but it has an executive order that requires 6% service-disabled veteran spend from every department in the state of New York, which means there's an opportunity that most of the utilities are following to try to mirror that spend. That 6%, most companies think they're doing really well to do 1.5%. So what can we learn from New York? A lot, you know. And then finally, the Illinois Commerce Commission, which does not have specific goals, but requires reporting every year as you do. We have a lot of really useful, cheery data on diversity at NEDC, and it's all free. I would call out that we'll be starting our commission diversity part of our toolkit, which is up there, diversitytoolkit.com. And that will allow any commission or anyone to look at what other states do and how they do it, including accessing all the reports that they get. So anyway, we thank you for what you're doing with your leadership and commend you on carrying the flag for over, 30 years. Done.
Thank you for that, Lori. Next, we'll hear from Gilbert Campbell. He is the founder and CEO of Volt Energy.
Thank you, Commissioner Thompson and Chairman Thompson and Commissioner Beverly for hosting this venue and for your leadership in this area as it relates to supplier diversity. Just wanted to give a little bit of a background and context of being a diverse supplier, some of the challenges that we face, some of the unique opportunities that we can offer clients, and also what is the art of the possible, rethinking supplier diversity in a disruptive way. So just a little bit of context as far as background. I launched a company here in the district in 2009 called Volt Energy. We develop, finance solar projects for commercial clients, universities, pretty much everything but residential. So we are developing a project, for example, right now at Howard University, which is a continuation of putting solar all throughout campus. But even as a diverse supplier, it's important for us to walk the walk. And we made sure on that project that we engage diverse suppliers through all aspects of it. So for example, we've engaged Greenscape, which is a DC CBE diverse company, to do the installation at Howard University. We've engaged Prime Partners Engineering, an engineering consulting firm, to manage the interconnection process. And we do that with all the work that we do, nationwide with that business. But around 2.5 years ago, around the tragic killing of George Floyd, a lot of the big tech companies started with have very aggressive decarbonization goals, as do many of the utilities that are here today. But they realized that they were looking at, they made very public commitments that we all saw to work with more African-American companies. So during that period, at least 4 of the big FANG tech companies reached out and said one of the big areas for them was utility scale power purchase agreement, which is difficult in the district because, we don't have hundreds of acres that would go towards developing solar, but other tech companies were having that challenge. And they had never done a deal with an African-American solar development firm. So we spent a lot of time with the tech companies having open and honest dialogue about how can we do things differently? How can a firm like us enter the market? And one of the things from, running a business for 10 years in the distributed generation space, share with some of the tech firms was, not looking at the traditional RFP process. It's hard to tell your story and the innovativeness that you can bring when you're sometimes held just to, telling your story in a box. And a lot of RFPs do have some discriminatory aspects of it that's hard for a diverse business trying to break in being a prime contractor. And that's one of the things I wanted to highlight is some success that we've had through some innovation in the marketplace. So with that said, when we had these conversations with the tech companies, Microsoft stepped up and we did something completely different. We signed the first utility scale power purchase agreement with a Fortune 500 company. It was for 250 megawatts, which is roughly about $400 million of projects to be developed. But the innovation that we brought as a diverse supplier to that engagement was we understand the importance of environmental justice. And when we're looking at, particularly Black and brown communities, since we can't develop utility scale in areas like DC, Baltimore, Philly, most urban areas that have the biggest environmental justice issues, what we did is we pitched it to Microsoft about our firm launching a foundation. And part of the revenue from the project goes into the foundation. And the foundation is making investments in diverse companies. These are grants, these aren't loans. We've invested in young people. So we started a program this summer where we have 6 students, 2 from Virginia State, 2 from Clark Atlanta, and 2 from Howard University, where they were paid $8,000 to go work for an environmental justice organization to get that experience. When they go back to school, they're getting a $10,000 scholarship, but it comes with some criteria where they have to be an ambassador on campus to hold town halls and things like that. So I'm sharing this to share what is the art of the possible when you can have open dialogue with diverse suppliers and getting them from necessarily from tier 2 spend to a tier 1 spend. And some of that is just having open conversations about what are the barriers, but what are some of the opportunities to do that. And when you have, a diverse firm as the prime, particularly like when you're talking about development and financing, you have the opportunity because we know all the other diverse firms that are in this space to be able to have more diversity throughout the project. So the excuse of we can't find diverse talent, it's out there, and so I just wanted to kind of share, it would be great as a society to see more diverse firms scaling in meaningful ways where we have, we can look to, diverse Elon Musk, if we're talking about the rapid growth of, decarbonization of our power sector, but the decarbonization of our transportation sector. We're also going through electrification of our building sector. We have a great opportunity to make sure that diverse firms are scaling, but it's going to require some innovative out-of-the-box thinking. So look forward to having dialogue about that. And thank you.
Thank you, Gilbert. Those are some great comments. Next, we have, we're supposed to have Dr. Amber Hewitt, who is the director of the DC's Office on Racial Equity. Unfortunately, at the last second, she could not be here, but instead we have Arlen Harwell, and he is the Deputy Chief of Innovations and Partnership at the DC Department of Employment Services. And so certainly look forward to hearing from him.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman Thompson and Commissioner Beverly for having me. The work that you're doing around this has been extraordinary. I've been a part of this work since we started talking about it last year. It's really great to be here. I'm here on kind of the other side from from supplier diversity a little bit, but we're more so the work that we're doing around the DC Infrastructure Academy, which is one of the projects that I manage, as well as the Office of Talent and Client Services, is we're providing the upskilling and the staffing for the district residents who are trying to work for these companies that are then going to be hired. So just wanted to kind of talk about some of the work that we've been doing. The DC Infrastructure Academy was launched in March of 2018 as a commitment from Mayor Bowser to provide skills and opportunities for trainings around infrastructure for district residents. We have partnerships with all of our district utilities, including an amazing partnership with both Pepco, Washington Gas, and DC Water. As a result of those trainings, we have provided training for over 2,300 district residents since we launched. Our graduation rate at the DC Infrastructure Academy is about 90%. And then our job placement rates are exceptional. From our Pepco program, we have 100% job offer rate for every graduate that has come out of our program since we started at DCIA as well. Thank you. As well as for the Washington Gas program, we are at about an 85% job placement rate for all of our graduates, and we are finishing up our second cohort through that program. The thing that makes the DC Infrastructure Academy so different from other training programs in the region, and why I think that it's important that we're having this conversation, is the public-private partnership that is what brought the DC Infrastructure Academy to fruition. We realized and recognized that there was a need for a diverse talent and a pipeline to diverse talent for our utilities and for the infrastructure industry in the district. You cannot walk around DC without seeing a crane, and even during the depths of the pandemic, DC was still on the move, and there was still need for district residents to find employment. And that's why the investment was put into the DC Infrastructure Academy. The other thing is that we also knew that there was connection to those who needed those jobs. They needed to be able to train for these jobs while also earning some sort of an income, because it's very hard to stop what you're doing or to change jobs or to change your career if you're not being paid. And so one of the unique things about our program is that all of our trainings provide a living wage. As of July of this year, or July 1st, a few weeks ago, the mayor, through investments from American Rescue Plan dollars, increased our training wage from $10 an hour to $16.10 an hour, the DC minimum wage, for all of our DCIA training programs. We have already seen an influx of interest for those who want to come into those training programs. The DC Infrastructure Academy has provided life-changing opportunities for district residents. I could sit here and tell you stories all day long of district residents, of the 2,300 district residents who've come through our program and received training, some of whom are now homeowners in the district, some of whom are now small business owners within the district, others who are now the breadwinner for their entire family and are providing an opportunity for those who come after them to see that there's a different way about doing things, and that there's those who are there that are providing opportunities. And that's just the DC Infrastructure Academy side. And what's important here is that all of the work that we've done, and I'll highlight Washington Gas and Pepco, they have worked with us to provide opportunities with their subcontractors, many of whom are minority-owned businesses, to place our graduates. And the success rate has been astronomical, as I said before. The other side of the work that I do is the Office of Talent and Client Services, which is our business engagement office. We recognize that a lot of small businesses have trouble with staffing up or hiring. And so my job on that side is to make sure that I'm connecting, and we are connecting, district residents with businesses in the region who are trying to upskill and to hire staff, and to make sure that we are making that connection so that no business comes to this region and feels like they can't find district residents that are qualified and or can be placed be employed by them. And some of the ways that we do that are we offer concierge service. Any business is welcome to come to us, and we will provide hiring events, jobs fairs. We will do candidate screening. We will provide them with candidates. We can screen candidates that they provide. And then we have a host of programs that are available just for district residents that can be taken advantage of by the business on their side. And those include our work experience program, where a business can come to us and they can take someone, or we can provide them candidates who are upskilling or new to any type of industry, wanting to go into a type of training or a job, and the district will pay $16.10 an hour for up to 4 months for that person to work for your company. So you come to us, They are technically employed by the district for 4 months. And they work for you. At the end of that, you aren't required to hire them. We obviously hope that you do, but there's no commitment there. We provide you with candidates, but you make your own decision on who is placed in your company. And they are paid the living wage in the district of $16.10 an hour. The other program that we offer is what we call our on-the-job training program. That is, we like to transition people out of the work experience program into the on-the-job training program, but we also can put people directly into the on-the-job training program. That program is for someone who is already in a position or knows the skills and is trying to upskill into that next level. For an example, someone who is a frontline worker going into first level management. For the on-the-job training program, the district will reimburse a company up to 75% of a person's salary for 6 months. And there is no specific cap on how much the salary can be. And so you as the employer would pay the salary, and then you, on a monthly basis, you receive a reimbursement from the district up to 75% of that person's salary. And again, there are some minor qualifications for any business who wants to participate in these programs. And thanks again to commitment and additional dollars provided by the Bowser administration through the American Rescue Plan. Both of those programs have doubled in funding over the last 2 fiscal years in the district. So I would love to talk to answer any questions about those programs, but really what I'm here to talk about, and as part of this, is like how we can take district residents and provide them with opportunities to work for these suppliers to then work for all of our utilities and to kind of complete that circle.
Thank you as well, R. I mean, some great information here, and I saw Gilbert's eyes poke up a few times when you mentioned some of those programs. So that's certainly great. I think my first question, I'm going to start with Lori. I wanted to follow up on one of the slides you showed. You talked about there's a utility that's been doing 70% for over 4 years in a row. But what are some of the best practices there? And then we'll come to Ms. Whitfield.
This is Southwest Gas, which is in Nevada and in California. And they have spent a lot of time working with making sure that their internal customers are behind the idea of supplier diversity, that they've got a tremendous amount of internal buy-in from all of the functional areas of operation, and that the same internal customers are willing to switch suppliers. That can be a really big hurdle to push, especially if you've got somebody who's been leading a department for 10 or 20 years and they've had, Matilda or Fred or George or whoever is their usual supplier. And so getting them to be willing to consider shifting is not the easiest thing on earth. And Southwest Gas has really gotten some platinum level best practices in how to manage their internal customers.
We've actually just been joined by Kirsty Whitfield. She is the director of DC's Department of Small and Local Business Development. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for being flexible with me.
No problem. But I didn't know if you want to give any opening remarks a little bit about DSLBD, and then kind of how you fit into this equation around supplier diversity and in the district.
Sure. All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Kirsty Whitfield. I'm the director of the Department of Small and Local Business Development. So it's interesting because the law in Washington, D.C. is race and gender neutral. We certify local businesses, and then we've got goals and ideals about where all that money should go. So any contract over $250,000 should be at least 35% CBE. And we also work with our local agencies to make sure that they're spending as much money as they possibly can locally. Now, it's interesting because I say to people all the time lately, we are a race and gender neutral law, but it'd be impossible to live in this world and be race and gender agnostic. We know that the majority of our CBEs are run by people of color and women. And so we know that when we are promoting those local dollars staying local, that we're promoting diversity spend in the vast majority of those instances. I also sit on the board of the the NMSDC, Minority Supplier Diversity Council. And I think really Supplier diversity is about opportunities. Supplier diversity is about making sure that people know what the rules are and that we can all access those same opportunities in the same way. And I heard the end of Lori's comments. You know, it is tough for large organizations to change what they've always done. They always say, you know, oh, I love Arlen. Arlen's the best. Why would I change with Arlen? And so a lot of what we end up talking to our procuring partners about is, you know, the value of what happens for the city when our local dollars stay local. We know our local businesses hire, you know, more aggressively locally. And then we know that, you know, we need to make sure that we are maintaining and increasing our tax base. And literally nothing does that better than supporting local business. So I think that when we think about, you know, diversity, you know, it's funny because I feel like we sort of chase after things with a lot of euphemism, right? So it's sort of here in the Washington district, it was, you know, resident owned, and then it was east of the river, and then it was, I mean, I think we're trying to make sure that we are creating a level playing field for those among us who don't have the same phone numbers in our Rolodex, right? And so at DSLBD, we are here to help businesses like make that next step. And in procurement, it means knowing where the opportunities are and where to hunt, and then helping get yourself prepared with bids and, you know, and past performance, you know, but there's a lot of other businesses that are outside of that normal nomenclature. And, you know, spending money at your local restaurant and spending local at your local coffee shop and buying furniture from your local furniture vendors is also diversity spend. And so we really talk a lot about local dollars staying local, and it means shopping in your local corridors, making sure that you're conscious. You know, we're a very political city, and I say to people, people vote with their money, and they vote for what they want with how they spend their money. And so we try to make sure that we are just amplifying the conversation about how we spend and why. And I'll pause with the last comment being, you know, we hear at DSLBD a lot, we need to get our local businesses ready for procurement, right? Which is, you know, which has veins of truth in it. And what I hear when I hear that is, you know, we need to make sure that there are the appropriate back office supports and ability to scale and grow. But I think that as a government official, my response lately has been, that is incorrect. We need to get procurement ready for small business. And we need to rethink the way we put procurements out there and the ways in which we just categorically exclude groups of people when the procurement is too big or when you have specialized things that are in there that may or may not be as necessary. And I think that, you know, when we think about diversification of the pool of opportunity, opening the door is one of the most powerful things that we can do.
That's an excellent point there, and I think that dovetails right into something that Gilbert said when he was talking about the RFP process. And I would like him to talk a little more about it, but he talked about some of the discriminatory practices that sometimes prevent the smaller minority-owned businesses from really being able to compete against some of the bigger. So I'd just like for you to talk a little bit more about that.
Sure. I think part of it is in speaking, you know, my lived experience is more in, like I said, in the solar development space, but looking at past performance where if it's prohibitive, where, you know, there was no African-American companies that develop utility scale solar. So if that's the criteria that you have to develop at least 100 megawatts in the RFP, you continue not going to have any African-American companies developing utility scale solar. So, you know, looking at ways that you can, in the RFP, are there things in there that are inhibiting diverse businesses from being able to effectively respond? And if you're finding that's the case, then in some cases, you know, where you can, bilateral conversations can be an effective tool to think, again, outside of the box, to where, like Director Whitfield was also saying. And then some of the companies we work with are thinking about things now on a national level of putting out RFPs just for diverse companies. And then so, you know, you have diverse companies bidding on tier one opportunities. And the reason I keep mentioning tier one, I'm not minimizing tier two spend, that's extremely important, but an issue that, you know, talking to and, you know, living that experience as well, being a diverse developer, access to capital is always a challenge. It's like, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? You need the opportunity to be able to get project financing and capital, but you also need to put fuel in the car to meet with people and things like that. So being able to have access to capital to grow your business and scale, I think is extremely important. And having that prime contract gives you more flexibility when you're looking for financing versus being in a secondary position. So
One of the questions that I asked the utilities, I would like to ask you guys as well, to the extent you know, is there a gap where you find it's either harder or it's still a place where there's not a lot of diversity in terms of from the supplier? So a certain skill set or a certain industry within a certain skill set or a certain like job or yeah, or type of job within it. So whether it be on the design side, the legal side, is there a certain area where there still needs to be a step up in hiring diverse suppliers? Anybody can answer that.
Yes.
Okay.
yeah.
So I would say absolutely, right? I think that in a society where we know that women earn pennies on the dollar compared to men and that Black women earn even less than that, we know that the access to opportunities continue to be limited no matter what. I think, we have the Green Book to show where the opportunities are currently not being met by SBEs. But I also think that, until we don't have to ask the question, until we're confident that the answer to that question is no, then there always has to be an exploration for that second step. In every vein of every industry, majority suppliers are doing better, like for all the reasons, right? But I think, the goal then isn't to say like, oh no, we want to take it away, because I think that's the fear that people have when they think, oh, well, you're going to do 1 million set-asides and you want to do these things. But that's not actually the case. There is always more. My team laughs at me because I always say, like, we have to live in a spirit of abundance. But we do have to live in a spirit of abundance, because the things that entrepreneurs do that other people don't do are solve problems, right? And entrepreneurs see the opportunities that are not being met. And so opening the marketplace for Black suppliers, for other diverse suppliers, isn't a zero-sum game. And I think that's a piece of the conversation that gets missed, because it feels like, well, if I have to split it in a different way, now you're coming for my nest egg. And I don't think that is actually the case.
I would also just say, Chair Thompson, yes, and to everything that Chrissy just said, but what's going to be a true game changer for us at this moment is the IAJA. That act, the need is so dramatic. This is the most money we're ever going to invest as a society in my lifetime. This has the potential to be as impactful as the Work Projects Administration in the Depression for changing our economy and changing opportunities. And so normally I would have said to you before that, yeah, well, I think that a lot of companies leave professional services out. They're not maybe, but right now, every single company that I talk to and every single regulator that I talk to is looking at this like it's a train coming down the path. Because when you look at it, there's almost every aspect of the utility industry, from water to electricity to broadband to gas. In every part of the country, there is opportunity for growth. And what do we need? We need people who are trained to do the work. Thank you, Arland. We need suppliers who look at those opportunities and are aware of them. We need all of our utilities to think about every single person that they touch and make sure that all of those people are aware of these opportunities, including the minority serving institutions where they hire, because Justice 40 is going to change everything for us in a way that it's going to be like the postal system and the other civil service opportunities in the 40s and 50s changed everything, And the biggest challenge that we are going to have, in my opinion, is missing the chance to use it in every way that we can.
And I think, kind of going back to both remarks that were made, how do we get, it's wealth creation and the growing divide between the have and the have-nots, and who gets hit the hardest is diverse entrepreneurs and diverse businesses. So taking a firm to getting from, let's say, tier 2 to tier 1, part of it is going to some strategies that have been successful is going to, for some of the companies, to look to your larger tier 1 majority suppliers and say, this is important to us to get more diverse firms in tier 1. It's not necessarily taking opportunities away from you. It's evening the playing field. And, your key trusted partners, when they get that message from the client, they understand that. And what we see is you see more thoughtfulness about joint ventures that are equitable, but it really has to be led by, initially the client and regulated entities saying, we really would like to see this. And then you see that it happens.
Arlen, I want to go back to the DC Infrastructure Academy. Certainly told us a lot about it, but can you just tell us a little bit more about the positions it trains for? And then, for somebody who's listening, may say, I want to go to the Infrastructure Academy. How can they go?
Yeah, absolutely. So we train around what we call our quick paths. We have our quick path to information technology, which is our CompTIA training. We have our quick path to transportation, which is our CDL training. And later on, we'll be bringing back our automotive tech training. And we have our quick path to energy, which is our Pepco training, our Washington Gas training, and our solar training. And so those are our three main quick paths. Again, all of our trainings are offered at our location on Pomeroy Road. What we do have, one of the things that's really great about the DC Infrastructure Academy is that we have the ability to pivot and to make changes and to tailor our training based around the needs of employers and the industry. One of the things that we have is our advisory committees based around all of our each one of our quick paths. And then those advisory committees are made up of industry experts and companies who are actively doing the hiring for the jobs that we're training for. And so they advise us on an annual basis how we can tweak our programs and tweak our trainings to make our candidates that much more desirable as they come out of the DC Infrastructure Academy. And again, that is one of those things that's been pivotal to us having our job placement rates on the back end of our programs. And so, yes, anybody that's interested in being a part of the DC Infrastructure Academy, you can reach out and get more information at dcia.dc.gov. And somebody on our team would be happy to work with you. We are always recruiting. We are getting ready to end out our fiscal year, but we are going to be having classes starting at the very beginning of the next fiscal year. And we have trainings that are always ready to go. I know that Washington Gas and Pepco are always wanting to get more people into their training programs and to get more opportunities.
Typically, how long are the training programs?
Our training programs vary, but for the most part, between 12 and 16 weeks. And then we have some trainings that are a little bit shorter than that. And those are, not to get too technical, but those are the kind that we call those stackable credentials. And so some of our trainings we do offer a OSHA 10 and OSHA 30 that is folded into some of our longer trainings, but can be offered separately.
And Director Whitfield, going more so back to, I guess, the business side and the certification side, what resources or where would you direct a minority business, a locally owned business, in DC? They're trying to get certified. What's the path they should be on? What should they do?
So the first question is, what do you sell, right? Because sometimes people think I've started a business in DC, I need to get my CBE certification. And it's not necessarily the case. And I know people say, wait, the director of DSOBD, she's not supposed to say that. But if the government isn't buying what you sell, then save your energy and focus on markets where there's a place for your product. So I think step one, find opportunities that fit your business model. And the Green Book is a great place to begin that search.
And I'm sorry, for those who don't know about the Green Book, can you give us
yes, thank you.
lines on it?
So the Green Book is the Mayor's Opportunity Resource Guide. And in that book, we publish this every year right around Thanksgiving. And it shows you where agencies are going to be spending money. And then perhaps more significantly, areas where agencies ask for a waiver, ask for an exemption from spending with local businesses. And so if they are saying, I can't find any businesses in this NIGP code, then that's a breadcrumb of a place for you to maybe look and say, oh, well, they're buying this NIGP code that I do, well, maybe I should start reaching out there. You know, we also connect on our website, dslbd.dc.gov, to all the procuring agencies in the district. So there's not just one procuring agency. Many of the agencies in the district have independent procuring authority. And you want to be looking for those RFPs and those, you know, those contracts that are out there to be able to see like what's letting and then where might your, you know, because maybe you're not going to prime it, but if it's let, it's probably looking for subs. And, you know, and those subs have to have subcontracting agreements. There's a lot of work you can do online, but then business is always personal. And so when, you know, when DEMPED does their March Madness, and I forget the name for DGS has a great event, OCP has OCP buys, you know, you get on those lists and maybe put them into a special folder in your, because they might flood you out. But I think the truth is there are a lot of resources for matchmaking and for making sure that you can put a face with what your business name is. And you just, then you got to hustle, because the other thing that people say to me sometimes is, you know, Director Whitfield, well, I got CB certified and I haven't got a contract yet. I say, well, what did you do? It's like, I got certified. Well, that is not the way it works, friends, right? You know, local business earns business every day. And so we're here to help people, you know, like pursue those things, but you have to also sort of have those inroads. And then I think just cold calls actually help sometimes. Like if you, when you see that line in there at, you know, some agency, like go online and figure out who is their office manager, who is their chief of staff, who can you start sending things to figure it out. And then the last thing I'll say, which was Arlen had said, you know, we're at the end of the fiscal year. We all know how the end of the fiscal year works, right? So if you have those relationships, and agency directors do not like to have money swept, right now is a time to go through your Rolodex and see if anybody needs anything, because, you know, we're going to find ways to make sure our budgets don't get cut.
You have a question. This is just a general question, probably more directed to Arlen than anybody else. But what advice do you, let me back up for a second. What challenges, if any, did you run into during COVID? And what advice do you have for people when you may face challenges with regard to something like a global recession?
So with the DC Infrastructure Academy, you know, when it was launched and when we came up with the idea, everyone automatically assumed that everything would be hands-on. You know, you were talking about infrastructure jobs and hands-on work. When the pandemic hit, I will say that the staff at the DC Infrastructure Academy, through their dedication and their commitment to continuing to serve district residents, we were actually the first program in all of the Department of Employment Services to transition completely to virtual. And there was only a 2-week gap in service in providing service to our participants. We continued to have graduations and we continued to get people into employment. But I will say that the challenge overall for that was that we had to make some tweaks. It was not as easy to serve people virtually as it is in person. Virtual learning, as I'm sure anyone with kids understands, is not the same as being in a classroom. I don't have any kids myself, but I have a lot of family and friends who tell me about it. And it's the same as an adult, you know, with that hands-on and being one-on-one with the instructor and things like that. Those were big challenges for us. But as far as the placements and things like that, infrastructure didn't stop. You know, as I said earlier, there was still a huge need for the people who were coming out of our academy. And so our job placement rate did not fall during that time. The only thing that was a change that we had to make our classes a little bit smaller. But that was really what it was for us. It was really the initial transition over. But the demand on the employer side and the demand on the participant side to be a part of our program didn't change.
And as we may be in a recession now for all, but as this recession potentially deepens, I was just wondering if there's any special advice that any of you have for people that are looking for inroads at this time, any special strategies, anything like that. You may not have it, I was asking.
It's a little challenging for me because, you know, you're still going to need electricity. You're still going to need gas. You're still going to need to have transportation. You're still, we still have to ship goods across the country. You're still going to have IT needs. So for us, these are the industries that you want to go into even in a recession, because the world is not going to stop. Things may slow down some, but these core things are going to continue to happen. And so that's why I think, even going back to the pandemic, that's why the Mayor Bowser and the Bowser administration tripled the funding for the DC Infrastructure Academy in 2020 going into 2021 budget. That's why there were funds put into the budget to build out Old Spin Garden High School into a new $54 million facility for the DC Infrastructure Academy, because these are the types of jobs that don't go away.
I'll say, COVID changed everything, right? At the beginning times of COVID, we focused on survive, pivot, and thrive. That was the plan. And so the advice that I would say to any business person, survive. What do you need to do to survive? Then with a pivot, look at your environment and then think about the way it should change. And the most important part of this is that there's so many things that we take for granted, so many past rules that have been in place for so long. And my advice to any business owner is be aware of the things that you are assuming and then challenge them, right? Because the innovation comes in the middle places of that. And so when we look at how we are assessing someone's creditworthiness, does it really need to be, is a credit score really going to be based on a loan to value ratio of the different things? If you've made it through, maybe that should be part of the way your score is assessed. And you've got to make those demands on the infrastructure. Don't judge me by that, because as I like to say in rooms like this, everyone's credit is shot. And it's okay, right? No one's alone in this. We have to reimagine what the reality should be, because at this critical juncture, like if we're going to rebuild it, we need to rebuild it like from the inside out, like we're talking about infrastructure. So if lending practices aren't working, we need to challenge them and reevaluate them. If the way that we're thinking about, the lease rates for ground floor retail aren't working, we need to talk about that. And so understand how your business works, and then ask for, and sometimes ask for loudly, what you need, because that will be the only way that we make a different future, as opposed to scurrying back to how everything used to be.
The other thing, if you're interested in being a diverse supplier in the utility industry, the wonderful gift is the rate case, and that's a roadmap for what companies are expecting to do in the coming X number of years. And so if you can bring yourself to read it, they are very dense. It gives you a sense of whether or not there's going to be a need for your type of goods or services for that company. And it allows you, I think, to really sort of hone in a little bit more clearly in your approach to them. The downside of trying to do work as a supplier with the utility industry is that there almost always is a fairly long lead time. In the main, we're not buying the stuff, with a 6-week window, except maybe at the end of the fiscal year. But that rate case is a gift, because many industries never put their plans, out to the public in the way that the utility industry does.
Another thing I would add to both what they have just shared, which I wholeheartedly agree with, is an advice that I would share with other diverse firms is, if for example, we're dealing with pandemic, supply chain issues, interest rates going up, all the stuff you just mentioned, is having honest dialogue with your customers and saying, we're going to deliver these services to you, but these are the vulnerabilities that we have. And a lot of times you can find that your customers will work with you. They may procure those materials on your behalf. If you have to forward purchase certain things as an example, or in our case, it's hard to provide fixed pricing on forward, solar energy prices what if interest rates double? So working with your clients on like indexing and what does that look like if this happens, and having those conversations on the front end, it's just about partnership. if you have authentic relationships with your clients and these are long-term partnerships, you can have those conversations.
Well, thank you for all those comments. I feel like we could probably continue all day talking about this, but unfortunately, we do have a stop time. So I want to first say thank you to you guys for coming and speak to us today. I want to thank the utility executives for coming. I'd also like to thank staff for planning such an excellent event. I would encourage those who are here and those listening to, go to the website, go to some of the resources that were talked about today to find out about more opportunities. And once again, thank you everybody for participating, and we look forward to seeing you next year. Thank you.
Oh my gosh. I feel so fried.